Hi, I'm Rachel, and this is my Would You Read It Challenge video for December 2023. The Would You Read It Challenge was started by @2Brody, which I'll link to down below. The purpose was to pick a variety of books, however you want, and read the first sentence of each book, and then ask your audience which books they'd like to continue with. I always thought that was a little too little, so I've been doing basically a few paragraphs to a page, and I have been looking at old ballots of the BookTube Prize. So the BookTube Prize was started by Robert Sheard. The intention is to judge the best in literary fiction and nonfiction published in the US in English the year before. It's been going on since 2019. And the 2024 year is about to begin, but Robert is still looking for judges. We pull from online readers, anybody who would like to volunteer and get to read books and expand your repertoire. That's what I've been really enjoying about being a judge these past few years. So I'll link to Robert's sign-up video down below. I also recently just made my own blog post about the BookTube Prize. I was looking at one of those ultimate best of lists at the end of the year to see about the buzzy titles and the ones that intrigue me the most, because I'm hoping I'll get to vote for them for the long list for 2024. So yes, if you care to see what titles intrigue me the most, look down below. Future Rachel here, because just posted on BookTube is a video where some veteran BookTube Prize judges talk about what judging has meant to them, so I'll also link to this down below. I especially hope that some nonfiction readers will care to join us, because I know that's always the division that has the least popularity when it comes to judges. I myself am a judge for both fiction and nonfiction, and in this video I will be looking back at a fiction Octafinals long list ballot. I am up to 2020 Fiction Ballot Group F. The Octafinals are our first round, and we have 8 groups per division. So yeah, that's my goal is to try to at least consider the first, a few paragraphs of all the books of the BookTube Prize, at least in fiction. So yeah, none of these made it to the finals list or anything like that, but I figured I'd try to give them a go. And without further ado, let's get started. And I will begin with book number 1. Boy writes words. Your end is a dead blue wren. Did you see that, Slim? See what? Nothing. Your end is a dead blue wren. No doubt about it. Your end, no doubt about it, is a dead blue wren. The crack in Slim's windshield looks like a tall and armless stickman bowing to royalty. His windscreen wipers have smeared a rainbow of old dirt over my passenger side. Slim says a good way for me to remember the small details of my life is to associate memories and visions with things on my person or things in my regular waking life that I see and smell and touch often. Body things, bedroom things, kitchen things. This way I will have 2 reminders for any given detail for the price of 1. That's how Slim beat Black Peter. That's how Slim survived the hole. Everything has 2 meanings. The one for here being where he was then, cell D9, 2 Division, Bago Road Jail, and another for there, the boundless and unlocked universe expanding in his head and in his heart. Nothing in the here but 4 green concrete walls and darkness upon darkness, and his lone and stationary body. An angle iron and steel mesh bed welded to a wall. A toothbrush and a pair of cloth prison slippers. But a cup of old milk slid through a cell door slot by a silent screw took him to there, to Fairy Grove in the 1930s, the lanky young farmhand milking cows on the outskirts of Brisbane. A forearm scar became a portal to a boyhood bike ride. A shoulder sunspot was a wormhole to the beaches of the Sunshine Coast. 1 rub and he was gone, an escaped prisoner here in D9. Pretend free, but never on the run, which was as good as how he'd been before they threw him in the hole. Real free, but always on the run. And that was from Boy Swallows Universe by Trent Dalton. Book 2, Just 2 years shy of 30, Patsy has nothing to show for it besides the flimsy brown envelope she uses to shade herself from the white-hot glare of the sun. The envelope contains all her papers, from birth certificate to vaccination records. But most importantly, it carries her dream, a dream every Jamaican of a certain social ranking shares, boarding an airplane to America, for the destination and for the ability to fly. So when Patsy got the second opportunity to interview at the U.S. Embassy, she went. She hadn't mentioned this to her family and hadn't stopped to consider what they would think. This morning she slipped out of the house early, before Mr. Belnavis's cock crowed, before the scent of Miss Hyacinth's baking bread replaced the damp smell of morning, before Nas Roberts started chanting, believe me not," about gold buried in their backyard. Patsy scribbled a letter to her daughter in her best handwriting and left it next to the Mama G's Singer sewing machine in their modest two-bedroom house in Pennyfield, a working-class neighborhood contained by a hill and a gully. Have a good day at school. Remember to look both ways before you cross the street, and do not talk to strangers. Also, tell Miss Gaines I will pay her at the end of the month. And that was from Patsy by Nicole Dennis Bren. Book 3. The first time Juan Luis proposes, I am 11 years old, skinny and flat-chested. I'm half asleep, my frizzy hair has busted out from a rubber band, and my dress is on backwards. Every other weekend, Juan and 3 of his brothers show up past midnight, all the way from La Capital, to serenade the good country girls in the area who are eligible for marriage. They're not the first men to stop by and try at me and my older sister, Teresa. For years, people stare at me, almost against their will. I'm different from the other girls, by no means pretty. A curious beauty, people say, as if my green eyes are shinier, more valuable to be possessed. Because of this, Mama fears if she doesn't try to plan my future, my fate will be worse than Teresa's, who already has her brown eye on LaGuardia, who guards the municipal building in the center of town. That night, the first out of many, 3 of the Ruiz brothers park their car on the dirt road and clang on Papa's Colmado's bell as if they are herding cows. The roads are dark under a cloudy sky and the absence of the moon. The power outages can last 15 hours at a time. There'd been some chicken stealing, and one store had been robbed twice in the past year. So we've kept everything under lock and key, especially after Trujillo was shot dead. In his own car. After being El Jefe for 31 years. This amuses Papa. All his life he had to look at Trujillo's photograph, along with the slogan, God in heaven, Trujillo on earth. No one could help laughing at his morality. Even God had done enough. But Trujillo did not go in peace. La Capital is in chaos, a tremendous mess. No law or order to speak of, full of crazies. Visitors from the big city tug on their lower lids, warning us to remain vigilant. So we're vigilant. And that was from Dominicana by Angie Cruz. Book 4. April 2010. The funeral was over. The reception was starting to fizzle out. Benjamin decided it was time to go. Dad, he said, I think I'm going to make a move. Good, said Colin. I'll come with you. They headed for the door and managed to escape without saying any goodbyes. The village street was deserted, silent in the late sunshine. We shouldn't really just leave like this, said Benjamin, glancing back at the pup doubtfully. Why not? I've spoken to everyone I want to. Come on, take me to the car. Benjamin allowed his father to hold him by the arm in a faltering grip. He was steadier on his feet that way. With indecipherable slowness, they began to shuffle along the street towards the pub car park. I don't want to go home, said Colin. I can't face it without her. Take me to your place. Sure, said Benjamin, even as his heart plummeted. The vision he had been promising himself, solitude, meditation, a cold glass of cider at the old iron-wrought table, the murmur of the river as it rippled by on its timeless course, disappeared, spiraled away into the afternoon sky. Never mind. His duty was to his father. Would you like to stay the night? Yes, I would, said Colin, but he didn't say thank you. He rarely did these days. And that was from Middle England by Jonathan Coe. Book 5, January 2015. There is a book on a shelf in a university library. This is not unusual, but it's not where this particular book should be. This book is misshelved in the fiction section, even though the majority of it is true and the rest is true enough. The fiction section of this library is not as well traversed as other areas, its rows dimly lit and often dusty. The book was donated, part of a collection left to the university per the previous owner's last will and testament. These books were added to the library, classified by the Dewey Decimal System, given stickers with barcodes inside their own covers so they could be scanned at the checkout desk and sent off in different directions. This particular book was scanned only once to be added to the catalog. It doesn't have an author name within its pages, so it was entered in the system as unknown, and started off amongst the U-initialed authors, but has meandered through the alphabet as other books move around it. Sometimes it is taken down and considered, and replaced again. Its binding has been cracked a handful of times, and once a professor even perused the first few pages and intended to come back to it, but forgot about it instead. And that was from The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. And finally, Book 6. It's like this, Saul Adler. When I was 23, I loved the way you touched me, but when the afternoon slipped in and you slipped out of me, you were already looking for someone else. No, it's like this, Jennifer Moreau. I loved you every night and every day, but you were scared of my love, and I was scared of my love too. No, she said, I was scared of your envy, which was bigger than your love. Attention, Saul Adler, attention. Look to the left and to the right and cross the road and get to the other side. Chapter 1, Abbey Road, London, September 1988. I was thinking about how Jennifer Moreau had told me I was never to describe her beauty, not to her or to anyone else. When I asked her why I was silenced in this way, she said, "Because you only have old words to describe me." This was on my mind when I stepped onto the zebra crossing with its black and white stripes, at which all vehicles must stop to allow pedestrians to cross the road. A car was coming towards me, but it did not stop. I had to jump backwards and fell on my hip, using my hands to protect myself from the fall. The car stalled and a man rolled down the window. He was in his 60s, silver hair, dark eyes, thin lips. He asked if I was okay. When I did not answer, he stepped out of his car. "I apologize," he said. "You walked onto the crossing and I slowed down preparing to stop, but then you changed your mind and walked back to the curb." His eyelids were quivering at the corners. "And then, without warning, you lurched forward onto the crossing." I smiled at his careful reconstruction of history, blatantly told in his favor. He furtively glanced at his car to check if it had been damaged. The wing mirror had shattered. His thin lips parted and he sighed sorrowfully, muttering something about how he had ordered the mirror from Milan. And that was from The Man Who Saw Everything by Deborah Levy. Okay, so this is an interesting mix for me. Most of the books I haven't read other than what I shared with you. One of the books is actually on my TBR. It's been on there for a while. It's the final book, The Man Who Saw Everything. And I have to say, I don't know, I mean, I think, I'm not going to take it off because I guess I'm stubborn like that, but I'm not sure it was the best beginning, or really the most interesting part, obviously, was, this accident. But I feel like, this overwrought, I guess, love affair between Saul and Jennifer. First of all, you do not need this prologue, this paragraph. Tell it in the story. Don't, project it before the story. And it's not that interesting to really have him thinking about it. I mean, I guess it would be for him, but we don't know them yet, so we don't care. The most interesting thing about it is, I guess, is to question whether or not he was accurately depicting the situation. Maybe he was so in his head that he didn't look carefully enough at the oncoming traffic or not. Or maybe it was this other guy telling things in his favor, and what's going to come of that? So it's definitely not my favorite of the 6, but it is the one that's already on my TBR. I found it through the Jewish Book Council website, so I tend to be interested in contemporary Jewish fiction, and I'll link to that review down below. The 5th book I actually DNF'd, The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern, because the truth is I don't even know why I started it. I wasn't really a big fan of The Night Circus, and then even fans of The Night Circus didn't like this one, and I just couldn't get that far into it without just, getting too annoyed. I'm like, what am I doing? This is just, highfalutin, book praise, and it just, it just didn't have enough of a real story, ironically, behind it. And I just, characters and situations that I felt like I could really root for. So it's a really rare case for me to DNF a book, but in this case I decided to. So that one I know I won't be giving another try to. Then out of the other four books, I think my favorite is probably Middle England by Jonathan Coe, which is one of the ones I've forgotten about really in the ensuing years. A couple of the others I, still recognize the titles and all, but I just like the simplicity of it. It's the most, straightforward scene between a father and a son. I would assume, I would guess based on the dialogue that the funeral was for the mother slash wife, maybe. But it's a small story, unlike, Patsy or Dominicana, which feel like they're, talking about pretty big themes about immigration and culture and society and that sort of thing. But at the same time, like, they're biting off so much, and like there's some weird tense issues and all of that, and I feel like they're putting in too much exposition in the beginning, and I'm not as invested in the characters, even though what could be happening with them could be interesting. But with Middle England, I know it's, not technically as grandiose a premise, at least not so far, but it's just so, direct. It's about a loss, and it's about how these two characters are dealing with it, and like, the father probably leaning too much on the son and that sort of thing. So I just, it was just really grabbed me most immediately out of all of these. And yeah, I guess the other one I didn't really talk about is the first one, which is Boy Swallows Universe, which was maybe the weirdest in terms of the first pages. Because, well, the interesting part, I guess, is trying to think of somebody trying to survive solitary confinement by, like, going into fantasy worlds and all of that. But then who is this first person narrator in the car? And what is that scene? Like, it's just out of nowhere. Like, Slim is saying, well, you have to, think of things in your real life to create fantasies. And then we go into his fantasy life, and he's living in reality in solitary confinement. So is this person with the first person even a real person or not? It's all a fair bit confusing. And I really, again, I didn't really like the beginning part. I guess certainly this batch of books proves that prologues don't always work, and it just seemed a bit pompous and with the wren and the whatever, and I'm just like, get to the story already. So those are my thoughts about these 6 books. I'd be interested to hear yours, and I will link to the Goodreads links for all of them down below, as well as more information for the BookTube prize, where I hope more people will be joining us for the 2024 year. So yeah, that's all I have for you now. I hope to be back on this channel in the next few days with my latest Am Reading update video, so stay tuned for that. And in the meantime, I hope you're all getting some good reading in during this holiday season. And Merry Christmas to everyone celebrating. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. And I'll see you next time.